How did Yngwie Malmsteen succeed in becoming so incredibly good at guitar? Well, there's a simple 4-step formula for how he did exactly that, and I'm going to show you as well how you can use that same formula to basically maximize your potential at anything, almost anything at least. So, number one, he had a very clear goal. He said in a 1986 Guitar World interview, when speaking of his style, quote, "I know exactly what I want," which means he had a goal. And he had that goal from a very early age, or at least relatively. He was already a fan of Deep Purple and that whole hard rock thing, think Fireball. And then he heard classical music, Niccolò Paganini, and he just became obsessed with that. And he wanted to fuse the two together. And that's really number one, having a goal. That's so important, and it was right way up there. It was a huge goal, but it was clearly defined, which means that he could break it down into smaller goals, which made it doable. And that's exactly what you can do if you have any sort of goal. You can break it down into smaller pieces and make it more doable. Does that mean it will be easy? No, but it will certainly be easier than watching random YouTube videos trying to learn stuff that isn't necessarily taking you in any one direction, but is taking you all sorts of ways. It's like trying to go sailing without knowing where you're going. You need a goal if you want to get far. The second bit of this whole thing, regular practice. Now I know what a lot of you are going to say. You're going to say that he practiced so much that I don't have time to practice that much, and that's true. But that doesn't mean you can't practice regularly. See, the mistake that a lot of people make when they play an instrument, and take this from someone who's been a music teacher for 13 years, is that they practice maybe once or twice during the week, and they might practice longer sessions. But the thing is, you should do short sessions, but basically every day. Consistency is the key here. That's what's important. When you play 10 to 15 minutes every day, you will see much better results than if you play 2 to 3 hours on a Saturday. Way better, I guarantee it. And what happens is, if you focus when you practice, which is kind of key for this as well, 10 to 15 minutes, you start to develop stamina so that you can focus for longer times, and you can maybe at some point start practicing 1 hour a day every day, 2 hours a day every day, 3 hours if you have the time for that, but you will have the stamina. If you try to go from 0 to 5 hours a day, it won't succeed. You won't have the stamina, you won't have the focus for that. So build it up slowly with consistency. And that's what he did. He played consistently. And sure, the hours were insane, but that's not the important thing. Consistency is the key. And one of the things that I think it's human nature kind of, to look at someone like Yngwie and go, he practiced so much that I won't be able to do that, so I won't try. When what we should look at when we look at him is, okay, I don't have time to do that, but I can at least do the consistency bit and get way better results than if I just practice on a Saturday. Number 3, he measured his progress. So measuring progress is extremely important because that always gives you a new goal. It helps you critique yourself and notice things about what you're doing that should be improved. You can do this different ways. You can do it with a metronome if you're practicing speed. Something like this, for instance. But what if you're doing something like this? That's not measurable in the same way. Well, you can measure it as well. You record yourself or you film yourself. The metronome is an easy thing if you're doing exercises or licks based on speed. If you want to build up speed, that's a good way to go. That will give you added motivation when you notice that your numbers are going up. Recording yourself, filming yourself, you will also get added motivation when you notice that things are progressing, that you're actually sounding better doing bends than you did a week ago. But the other thing about that is that you actually notice stuff that you can do better, and on a positive note, notice stuff that's good, because that's important too. It's important to notice stuff that you're actually good at. Otherwise, it just gets depressing. But measuring progress, Yngwie Malmsteen, in his young days, he recorded stuff at a very early age. He had a recording setup, he did demos, he invited friends over, and he recorded all sorts of stuff. And that's basically measuring your progress, and that gives you added motivation and gives you a new goal to aspire to. Remember, step number 1 was goals. It's breaking a big goal into smaller goals. Now there's an additional thing. I said this is a 4-step formula. I wanted to mention, I did briefly mention focus here. This is something not maybe as important for someone of his age or maybe my age when I was young, but these days extremely important for young people to realize you have your phone and it's constantly beeping and doing stuff, and it's bad for your focus. You need to focus when you practice, so turn off your phone or put it in flight mode or at least quiet mode so it won't be disturbing you. Tell your mother to not bother you. Lock your brothers and sisters out of the house. But make sure you can focus, and like I said, if it's just 15 minutes, it still needs to be focused. That's the thing. Consistency and focus are important. Back in his day, back in my day, it wasn't that big of a deal. The phone wasn't constantly beeping and all that. I actually remember unplugging the old style phone that we had at home on occasion when it started annoying me. Number 4, practice new stuff or push your boundaries. Now this goes back to measuring your progress. So if you've built a certain speed with finger exercise, try to get it faster and push your boundaries or learn something new. Yngwie said in that same interview that I just referenced, quote, "I was obsessed with the fact of always improving." And that's really, a lot of people when they practice, they just sit around and noodle. They don't really do anything new. They are not really pushing their boundaries. And that's also a good reason why you need to measure your progress in some way, shape or form. That's why a lot of people don't progress the way they maybe should. He certainly did. He did push himself constantly by learning the Paganini stuff, for instance. Incredibly difficult stuff. And speaking of Paganini, there's a whole discussion to be had about musical diversity, which for him, like bringing stuff from outside of the rock world, classical music, infusing that, brilliant stuff. But really, push your boundaries. So the formula is really simple. It's have goals, practice consistently, measure your progress, nowadays focus, and always try to improve, push your boundaries, practice new stuff, don't practice old stuff. That's the kind of thing we sometimes fall into, actually, by the way. If you have a gig or something coming up where you need to know something that you basically already know, but you spend time getting it perfect, that time spent doing that is kind of stuff away from actually improving, pushing those boundaries. I mean, I'm not saying it's not valuable, and especially for that one gig, if it's an important gig or whatever, if it's a recording session, you probably need to do that stuff. But try to think of when you practice, try to push those boundaries. Learn something new every time. That way you'll progress faster. Speaking of Yngwie, I've actually met him once, and I had my kind of biggest fanboy moments ever when he looked at me and he said, you're very good. And I kind of became a giggling small schoolgirl instantly. Blushing and everything. That was when I was at his Guitar Gods competition in 2016. If you want to check out the song that he'd listened to, that's the video here. If you want to support the channel, there are a bunch of different links in the description. For instance, my Patreon, where you get access to all of my music lessons and a bunch of exclusive. You can even take that stuff for free. There's a Q&A going on, at least while filming. But above all, I hope you have some use from this video and it helps you become a better player. And I hope you have a nice day. See you. Take care. Bye.